Hey there, movie lovers. Welcome back to Rocky Watches Movies. Today we're hopping back into the DeLorean to revisit the 1989 sci-fi classic Back to the Future Part 2. This sequel took time travel to bold new heights, introducing us to a futuristic 2015, hoverboards, and some unforgettable twists. But how much do you really know about what went on behind the scenes? So buckle up, floor it to 88 miles per hour, and let's discover 20 things you never knew about Back to the Future Part 2. It's widely known that Back to the Future Part 2 and Part 3 were filmed back to back, a remarkable move even for a major studio at the time. But Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale were at first not interested in creating a sequel to their hit Back to the Future from 1985. And that the open ending of the first film had simply been intended as a final bit of fun. However, when the studio began planning a sequel, they chose to remain involved in continuing their creation, eventually expanding it into 2 sequels. Zemeckis has stated that had he known a sequel was coming, he would have ensured that Marty's girlfriend, Jennifer, was not in the car at the end of the first film. Since the sequel would focus primarily on Marty, there was little for her to do, and she might even have obstructed the story. This explains why Jennifer is knocked out by Doc and left behind so early in the film. One early concept for the sequel had Biff giving his younger self the almanac in the 1960s rather than 1955. When Marty went back to prevent it, he encountered his parents again, now portrayed as hippies, and nearly jeopardized his own conception. Robert Zemeckis ultimately felt the idea was too similar to the first film, and he noted that George and Lorraine would have been too old to convincingly appear as hippies. He instead developed the concept of revisiting the original Back to the Future from new perspectives, with the 2 Martys navigating 1955. In the original script, Pa Peabody was to be assessed in a mental institution after claiming to have seen a spacecraft, the DeLorean from the first film. Upon his release, he would witness a flying DeLorean and fire his shotgun at it, inadvertently damaging the time circuits. This incident was intended to explain why the destination time display flickers to read January 1st, 1855, 12 a.m. Writer-producer Bob Gale explained that the scene was ultimately cut because Will Hare was unavailable to reprise his role as Peabody for the sequel. Elizabeth Shue was cast as Jennifer, and all the closing shots of Back to the Future were reshot to serve as the opening of the sequel. Claudia Wells, who had played Jennifer in the first film, was unable to reprise her role as she had stepped away from acting to care for her mother, who had been diagnosed with breast cancer. She later returned to acting in the independent film Still Waters Burn from 2008. She also runs a highly successful high-end used clothing store in Los Angeles. Some of the film's notable visual effects were made using a camera system called the Vista Glide. It was developed for use in the sequels, and this camera dolly system allowed an actor to play 2 or more parts in a single scene, interact with themselves, walk around themselves, and even pass objects between themselves, all with a computer controlling the pan, tilt, focus, zoom, and the split line during each process. Crispin Glover, who played George McFly in the original film, was invited back for the sequel, but things quickly went south. He claimed he was offered less than half the pay of his co-stars Leah Thompson and Tom Wilson, and believed producer Bob Gale was still unhappy about his earlier criticism of the first film's ending, where Marty's family's happiness seemed tied to money and success. When Glover's request for fair pay and creative input was refused, his role was reduced, and another actor, Jeffrey Wiseman, was cast in his place, wearing prosthetics and filmed from tricky angles to make it look like Glover had returned. When Glover later discovered that molds of his face and footage from the first film had been reused without permission, he took legal action and won. Universal's insurance company settled for over $750,000, and the Screen Actors Guild introduced new rules to prevent studios from using an actor's likeness without consent. His lawsuit became a landmark case in Hollywood, one that changed how actors are protected to this day. Perhaps lesser known is that Crispin Glover and Robert Zemeckis eventually reconciled after their well-publicized disagreements during the sequels. Years later, Glover returned to work with Zemeckis in a very different context, lending his talents to the 2007 3D motion capture fantasy film Beowulf, in which he portrayed the monstrous Grendel. Griff's iconic pit bull hoverboard was originally intended to be called the Mad Dog, a subtle nod designed to foreshadow the appearance of his ancestor in Part 3. Although the name was ultimately changed, the hoverboard remains one of the most memorable symbols of Griff's rebellious personality. In promotional material, director Robert Zemeckis explained that hoverboards float on magnetic energy. He added that they had been around for years, but parent groups had prevented toy manufacturers from producing them, joking that the filmmakers had managed to get hold of some for the movie. Although intended as a joke, Mattel, whose logo appeared on the hoverboard props, soon found themselves inundated with calls from people asking where they could buy one. Despite their convincing appearance on screen, the hoverboards were merely wooden props attached to the actors' feet. To create the effect of flight, the actors were suspended on cables, which were later removed in post-production. The tagline for Jaws 19 is reported as, "This time it's really, really personal." The marquee displays the director's name, Max Spielberg, who is the son of executive producer Steven Spielberg. Max was born in June 1985, the same year the original film in the franchise premiered. Spielberg is also credited with devising Marty's line upon seeing the hologram, "The shark still looks fake," a reference to his own frustration and doubts regarding Bruce, the mechanical shark in Jaws from 1975. A mock teaser trailer for the entirely fictional Jaws 19 was released on the 21st of October 2015, outlining all 19 films in the series. Astrophysicist Carl Sagan regarded this as the greatest time travel film ever made, commending its accurate depiction of multiple timelines as a realistic portrayal of what might occur if time travel were possible. In Back to the Future: The Game, Doc Brown adopts Carl Sagan as an alias when visiting Hill Valley in 1931. The 2015 edition of the USA Today newspaper is dated October 22nd, a clever Easter egg that coincides with Christopher Lloyd's real-life birthday. This subtle detail serves as a fun tribute to the actor who famously brought Doc Brown to life. The television's inside Cafe 80s are filled with playful nods to classic 1980s television, featuring shows like Family Ties and Taxi. These selections are particularly clever, as Family Ties originally starred Michael J. Fox and Taxi featured Christopher Lloyd, linking the actors' real-life careers to their on-screen personas. The film includes some other iconic sci-fi vehicles alongside the DeLorean. Notably, there are a few clear shots of the Star Car from the 1984 film The Last Starfighter, as well as a glimpse of a Spinner, the type of flying car made famous in Ridley Scott's Blade Runner. Additional vehicles included heavily modified Ford Probes and Mustangs, alongside various concept cars. The decision to include a scene featuring an automatic food hydrating device in the future was driven by product placement, specifically to secure Pizza Hut's sponsorship. The company supplied a professional food stylist and a pizza kitchen on the set, ensuring hot, visually appealing pizzas were available for each take. Pizza Hut also sold Back to the Future Part 2 promotional sunglasses known as Solar Shades for just $1.99. When Back to the Future 2 took us to the year 2015, it made some wild predictions about the future, and surprisingly, quite a few came true. We may not have flying cars or hoverboards that really hover, but the film got a lot right. Video calls, smart glasses, voice-activated tech, wall-mounted flat-screen TVs, and even hands-free gaming all became reality. Nike even released self-lacing shoes inspired by the movie, and drones are now used for everything from filming to deliveries. So while we're still waiting for our hoverboards, the film proved to be quite accurate in its vision of the future. Elijah Wood makes his cinematic debut in Back to the Future Part 2, marking the very beginning of what would become a remarkable film career. Wood appeared as the young boy engrossed in playing the arcade game Wild Gunman at the retro-futuristic Cafe 80s. When the unconscious Jennifer is taken home by the two officers in 2015, considerable effort appears to have been made to conceal the identity of one officer, Reese. Her face is kept in shadow, and the bill of her cap obscures her eyes. The role of Officer Reese was played by Mary Ellen Trainor, who was Robert Zemeckis' real wife at the time. As the idea of a second film was not planned, the theatrical release did not feature the words "to be continued." The caption was only added for the home video release. The film's enormous success prompted the studio to plan sequels regardless of whether the original team returned. Thankfully they did. The film earned a total of $43 million over the 5-day Thanksgiving holiday, surpassing the previous record set by Rocky IV in 1985. Its total gross reached over $118 million in the US, bringing the worldwide total to over $332 million. This made it the third highest worldwide that year, behind Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade and Batman. And there you have it, folks. You now know a little bit more about Back to the Future 2. If you enjoyed the video, which I presume you did as you got this far, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos coming to Rocky Watches Movies. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.